So, Iran is facing a major revolution right now. And it's kind of hard to tell what is going on. But I do know the basics of what's going on. It's basically the Islamic Republic's not knowing of how to handle the economy in such a great manner. Yeah, we haven't seen this from Iran since probably right around September of 2022 when a 22-year-old woman was killed because she didn't wear her hijab properly. Now, earlier this morning, President Trump decided to post out a tweet on Truth Social regarding what's going to happen to anybody, mostly the government, who will violently suppress or even mutilate the protesters in such a way that Trump and his quote-unquote allies can't handle. But it's not just Trump that is backing these protesters, but it's also Israel who also is backing these protesters. But I both have stern warnings to them. If the Iranian people do not want you to be involved, then do not be involved in their affairs. Let me show you what I mean. So this is an article that was brought upon by France 24, a news organization that's mainly based in Paris that goes more in depth about what's going on in Iran. And it states that yes, Iranians are suffering and they're revolting against their government because their economic conditions have just gotten worse. But it's not just about the economic conditions that are going on in Iran, but it's also the environmental crisis that Iran has been facing upon, like the depleted water sources near Tehran in the summer of 2025. Literally, water levels were at their lowest in 6 years. Literally. So that's why people are revolting. But it's also not just the economic conditions and the environment crisis that's been going on in Iran, but it's also the silencing of many of the youth by the central government in Tehran. Mainly because the government is ran by the people who believed in the 1979 revolution. The young people that supported the revolution in 1979. Those people are getting old by now. The youth want to lead the country. They want to lead the country. But they're stopped upon by paramilitary organizations like the Besiege. But yeah, it's not just in Tehran that these protests were involved, but it's also in cities like Shiraz, Mashafan, Tabriz, and many more that I may not be able to name. But as we know, at least 7 people have died. But I heard it's been up to 9 on Thursday, with a clash between protesters and security forces in western Iran, which is where most of the population lives. Eastern Iran is just a desert. Western Iran is where all the major cities are, like Isfahan, Shiraz, and Tehran. Now, this is probably the biggest protest since 2022, when a 22-year-old, whose name is Mahsa Amini, died because she wore her hijab incorrectly by the morality police. Iran has since banned the morality police in 2023, but nobody cares about that anymore. They don't care about how women wear their hijab. They don't care about that. They care about the economic conditions. But, as pointed out in this other section of the article, it says that the chant It says right here. This is the chant that the Iranians are saying. This is quote unquote not Gaza, not Lebanon. May my life be sacrificed for Iran. So basically, what the youth are saying is that put Iran first, then put pressure on Gaza and Lebanon. Yes, Gaza is facing an existential crisis with the genocide. And yes, Lebanon is facing an economic crisis again. But many Iranians want their government to be Iran first, before looking at the outside world. But you might be thinking, how bad is the economic crisis going on in Iran to the point where people have to protest? Well, prices rose by an average of 52% year-on-year in December. So compared to December 2024, prices were 52% cheaper than what they were in December of 2025. That's a big problem right there, because inflation has rose by 40% and food prices have risen by 72% over there in Iran. Basically, the people can't afford basic necessities like food, medicine, and water. Here's another section of the article that raises the awareness of the Iranian people and seeking help from the outside world. It says, don't be afraid, we are all together. Meaning that Iranians are all together, hoping that the government can be delegitimized and hopefully removed at some point. It says, on the third day of demonstrations, so I think December 30th, a young woman dressed in trainers and with her hair up in a ponytail led a group of protesting shopkeepers through the thoroughfare of Tehran's Grand Bazaar. Now, point this out. The Grand Bazaar is huge in Tehran because that's where most of the money comes from for the city of Tehran. If the Grand Bazaar shuts down, Tehran is a standstill. That's how it is. Here's another chant that Iranians are trying to say. They're saying freedom, freedom, freedom. This chant, typically heard among university students, has resurfaced in recent days. In a video from December 30th, students in the hallways of the Kaji Nasir Tusi University of Technology in Tehran, if I said that right, beat a rhythm with their feet as they chant the words, freedom, freedom, freedom. It just tells me that university students are getting really, really angry with the Iranian government. At a huge point that they are fed up with the government right now. They're just fed up. They're fed up with the government. However, the police have been notified of all of these catchphrases that the university students have been saying. So, the central government decided to increase security around most universities, starting on December 31st. It says, universities in Iran are under high surveillance but remain hotbeds of protest. Students from dormitories at the University of Tehran on Monday evening were heard chanting, protest, free students, protest. Security forces quickly surround their building and block the entryways. Major problem. But they could not prevent student marches spreading into a dozen other major universities in the capital the next day, meaning that security forces were able to basically lock university students to their dormitories, but that didn't stop university students from expressing their side of the whole ordeal, calling for the police to join them, which leads to the next point, and it says, police officers, support us. The police in Tehran, not just in Tehran, but most of Iran, are very, very finicky. Some police departments can side with the protesters, but some, like the city of Qom, which is a huge stronghold of the Islamic Republic, are heavily tied with the government. It says, female students at Tehran's Shahid Beheshti University, if I said that right, attacked security forces who had come to break up a gathering in their halls of residence on Wednesday night with cries of, without honor, without honor. French journalist Armin Arifi reported. If I said that journalist's name wrong, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry that I said your name wrong. But this is his whole ordeal. This is his Instagram video regarding this whole situation. He's trying to spread awareness about this. I mean, look at the amount of students in this picture. I know this picture is blurry, but that is like a lot of students right there. That's a lot of students in that picture. And basically, the chant has been heard so many times since Sunday, breaking out near police roadblocks during detonations of tear gas and as the police performed violent arrests. Yes, a lot of people were arrested, which basically angered everybody. And it kind of worsened the reputation of the Islamic Republic to a point where people just do not think that the Islamic Republic of Iran is as legitimate as pre-1979 Iran. As you can see from this picture posted by the same journalist, you could see that there are people huddling near a car where they're going to try and arrest these university students. You can see another crowd over here, so basically one here and there's one back here. I don't know the actual credibility of this, but I'm just going to point out and just say that these people were arrested. Now, this is where the protest turned from an economic protest to now a full-scale revolution in Iran. Will I think this will be a revolution in 1979? I don't know, but I hope it will be like that. But this quote says, "This year will be the year of blood. Ali Khamenei will be overthrown." Young protesters were filmed shouting a direct threat to Iran's supreme leader on January 1st in the city of Marvajdat in southern Iran. The video has since been shared widely online. I want to point this out. Basically, 2025 was all about the economic stuff. Once the calendar flipped to 2026, Iranians changed their tone. And they said, F you guys! F you guys! We're done! We're done with you guys! We're done! But these people bring up a prominent person. So obviously they arrested somebody. But I brought up that they brought up a prominent person. It says, at the University of Tehran, students were also heard shouting, "Death to the principle of Velit Fardik," openly criticizing Khamenei's vision of the Islamic Republic. Now, Khamenei took control as supreme leader after Khomeini died in 1989. But Khamenei is insanely corrupt. He's not a person that knows anything, or does know anything a lot about the economic conditions of the Islamic Republic of Iran. However, do I think Khamenei can control the protesters? Yes, he can. He just can't do it because he's just basically upset at them with religious laws. It says the chant targets not just the Khamenei, but his entire political system. So basically, 1979 is about to get erased by 2026. Now, I've noted that these chants say something to a particular person, and it does. It says the political chants also reference the former regime, which was led by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi until he was overthrown by the Islamic Revolution in 1979. His son, Prince Reza Pahlavi, now lives in the U.S. and is a controversial opposition figure, supported by some protesters. Literally meaning that the protesters would rather have the Shah return and have them lead the head of state rather than having Khamenei go through some progressive reforms. Because, let's be honest, the youth do not trust Ali Khamenei. They don't trust him in any way. Basically, what the young people say is that this is the final battle. Pahlavi will return, /or Reza Shah. May your soul rest in peace. Referring to Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the father of Prince Reza Pahlavi. However, there is some uncredibility that Prince Reza Pahlavi will have. Like, for example, his stance on Israel and Palestine. That stance is still very particular to those that live in Iran, mainly because that he's been seen in Iran as Israeli friendly, not supportive of the Palestinian movement. And I want to note that particularly because Israel is leading a genocide in Gaza. I've told you guys earlier about that. But do I think that Reza Pahlavi can change the rhetoric? I think so, yes. But he's too scared to change that because he basically has close ties to Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu. And it says Israeli media outlet Haaretz recently reported an influence operation aimed at reinstalling him as Shah during the 12-day war between Iran and Israel in June. Now, the protesters are split. It says demonstrators who reject both the current former regime have been heard chanting neither Shah nor Mullah, which Mullah is a reference to Ali Khamenei. And the article ends with, beyond political allegiance, the majority of protesters are united around a broader aspiration to turn the page on the Islamic Republic and build a different future. A future that is for them and for the people, not for the rich. Which is what Ali Khamenei has been doing. If you've seen Ali Khamenei's interviews, you can see that he's been huddling around in a nice room. He's been hosting leaders from around the world in a nice room. That's a sign of corruption. That's a sign of corruption. Because there's no way a head of state can have such a nice chair to sit at while the people are suffering with basically no necessities of food, medicine, or water. So here is a video regarding the political situation going on in Iran. This is from a different news organization that is based in Germany. You're going to see what they put out. Here we go.
We start in Iran, where protests over the rising cost of living are spreading amid an economic crisis. Videos published online have shown students demonstrating at several universities, including in the capital Tehran, with security forces deployed at major intersections in the city. Protests by shopkeepers have been ongoing since Sunday after the country's currency hit a record low. Now, this footage of one protester sitting in the street and defying police has been going viral on social media. The Iranian president has called for dialogue with demonstrators. So just how significant are these protests? I asked Sarah Bazubandi, a non-resident research fellow at the Institute for Security Policy at Kiel University.
So within that 1-minute video, the news reporter basically states that Iran is going through a crisis. But he kind of summed it up in a shorter format where a lot of the people are protesting. They're protesting for independence. Basically, they just want to be left alone. They want freedom, and they want the Islamic Republic to be torn entirely. Now, with this whole Iran thing, I'm very skeptical about what Donald Trump will do. I've been very opposed to what Trump has done in America, but there are some things that I do support, like doing the Hunger Games thing. But what he's put it out to Iran was kind of, I would say, in the middle of everything. So, essentially, this is from Ground News again, and it basically states that, I'm going to go through the center because I don't want to be left or right on everything. It says, on Friday, President Donald Trump warned on Truth Social, the U.S. will intervene if Iran violently kills peaceful protesters, adding, "We are locked and loaded and ready to go." That's what Trump said. However, I don't know the meaning of "we are locked and loaded and ready to go." I don't know what the meaning of this is. Is Trump sending weapons to the protesters? Is he bombing certain cities in Iran that are supportive of the Islamic regime? Is he allowing Israel to bomb those cities? We don't know. Shopkeepers in Tehran went to strike on December 28th over high prices and economic stagnation as the rial plunged to 1.42 million rials per $1 US, In December, food prices rose 72%, with medical supplies up 50%. Government statistics show. That's huge right there. That's huge right there. If prices increase that high and people can't afford them, then you gotta blame the government for all of that. Security forces used tear gas and detained demonstrators, with BBC and human rights groups reporting 6 killed in clashes and footage showing fires and roadblocks in Tehran, Loregan, and other cities. That's been updated to 9 as of now. Ali Larjani, Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, warned shortly that U.S. interference would destabilize the region and harm American interests, while Trump did not specify what U.S. intervention would entail. Yeah. Ali brings up a good point. That U.S. interference could backfire, and Trump doesn't really know what he's trying to say. This escalation follows prior military actions and growing public anger, as the standoff follows U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran's enrichment sites in June, and Iran's retaliation. These demonstrations are the largest since 2022 protests after 22-year-old Mahsa Amini's death. So, you might be thinking, what is enrichment? What the U.S. and Israel are basically stating is that Iran has a lot of uranium. But Iran has basically stated that these enrichment sites that they've created are not intended to develop nuclear weapons. But both Trump and Netanyahu believe that's false. They believe that's false. What do I think about this? I kind of think what Trump and Netanyahu are saying is a complete shit show. I don't trust those two. Ever since they did their party on New Year's Eve, it showed corruption in the U.S. It showed corruption in the U.S. But do I think that they may say the right stuff to the Iranian people? We don't know. So what is my take on all of this that's been happening in Iran? My take is that I will wait and see what's going to happen next. I don't want to dive too deep into specifics regarding who was involved, what were the reasons, and why did it happen. We know those 3 happened, but I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what the dimensions will be within the next 5 to 10 days. But if the Iranian people keep protesting, we could eventually see the fall of the Islamic Republic as we know, but I will warn outside leaders that if you are involved, you are responsible for what you've done in that country. So there's that. Alright, that'll be all for this video. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you like and share this video so more people can see it. I hope you subscribe to this channel so you can see more of this content. And I will see y'all in the next video.